Oh yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely will take that.
So we're going to select our P25 protocol. We're going to create a new channel list by going to the plus sign and non-uniform.
Okay, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and you start with channel number 1, and we're under channel center frequency. If you tap there, you can edit the frequency.
Okay, so that's where we're at. So ours is 851.725 for our control.
Okay.
So we put that in.
Yep, and once you have that in there, you want to make sure you hit add, and that way it shows up in the channel list.
Got it.
Now, if you had more,
So
all you'd have to do is change this to channel 2.
Okay.
And then you can edit this frequency.
Yeah, so if we were tracking like at the fire department and the, so it used to be that way till we got the simulcast system. So the state police had the one channel there, and then the Ingham County had their own. So yeah, when we'd have to do it, and there were 2 different bands. So one was a 460 band, the other was 800. So, but those days are gone as of actually last month. Now we're under one unified state. Yeah. So right, because that was a pain when you're actually between 2 bands, because then you got to actually really flop around and use different antennas.
Exactly. So here's, you know, this is okay if you've only got a few channels, but let's say you're in an area that has a lot of channels. Well, we can import a channel list, and the format to do that is really simple. Let me just show you one. Let me go to Orange County. It's a CSV or comma separated file, so it's a really easy format. All I need is channel and frequency. I can key in my frequencies, increment the channel number, and once you have that done, save that for later. You can import a channel list, and it's just a quick and easy way to get all the channels in there instead of keying them all in.
Right.
But
that's a lot of channels.
Yeah, that's the city of Orlando.
Yeah, we're much simpler around here, at least as far as I know. One control channel.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now all you have to do is hit save.
Okay.
And that's where you give it a name.
So we have to save it. All right, and then we get the name here, and so then we just call it. We'll just call it MPSCS, and then save it. Yeah, I might want to do a 1 there. Save as. So okay, so we saved it. So then
all right. Now we can set up. We're going to set it up to do a test. So to do that, I got to find one that works for me here. So once I have the protocol and band highlighted, under measurement, you're going to see 3 options. The first option, RSSI, receive signal strength. That's only going to provide power. The one that you want to do is this P25 downlink decode. Now, you have a third option on your scanner I don't have, and that is the out of service BER. Like I said, it's not done that often, and it's something I'll never do. So let me just get rid of those. So what you want to do is once you have your protocol, band, and measurement selected, under properties where it shows selected channels, you tap on that. That's going to let you add your channels. Now, the network I'm going to be testing has 7 channels, and they do rotate the control channels on a periodic basis. So I never know exactly which one it is. I'm going to...
Right, that is a good point. Our old system did that. Okay.
So that's why
But I do know for the one that we have, I see what you're talking about. Okay, that does make sense.
Mm-hmm. So one of the other things is when I have a couple of different systems I'm going to test, I like to group those channels. Now, this also helps for that UHF, VHF system that doesn't have a control channel where you're just looking at all those channels. If we put them in a group, it still looks at every frequency independently, but reports the strongest one of the group. So if a channel gets keyed up and passes, it will pass for the group. I like to group all my channels if I have more than one. You don't have to worry about this, but just to kind of show you what you do is under channel grouping, you click the plus sign to create a group. Well, see, I told you I have typing dyslexia. And then you just bring the channels in. You press and hold, and they kind of. They don't have to be in order. It's still going to measure each one of these independently. And the reason there's not a select all is because you can create multiple groups within a channel list if you need to. So that's what the grouping does. It'll be more evident once we start collecting data.
Neil, I have a question.
Sure.
This is Doug. So when you group the channels, are you still going to get an independent, you said you get independent data for each channel, but if you're looking at your grid and one channel passes, will it show that all channels are clear for that, or is it only going to show what it measures?
I'm going to say yes to both because you have the option, right? So let's say out of all my 7 channels and one channel is passing, if I report the group is going to pass. But if but I also have the ability to just choose a specific channel to report.
Right. Yeah, the only reason I asked that question is if we're going to do a walk survey and we group together multiple systems and we look and we see a green map, we may actually need to isolate out or have another way to report that this area is a pass, but these other areas are not necessarily in the same rating.
Well, you bring up a very good point, but the one thing about grouping is I can only group like channels.
Okay.
So I can't group my LTE measurements in with my P25 measurements. And most of LTE measurements you can't group because they're always going to be in a different band.
Yeah, no, I'm good with that. That's all I wanted to make sure is that we weren't grouping unlike bands together where it would look better than it could be, perhaps.
Exactly. So once I finish my grouping under settings, where it shows the phase, I'm going to leave that to auto detect. The scanner will figure out whether it's a phase 1 or phase 2 system. Under channel type, I do want to change this. If I leave this at traffic, the default measurement will be the maximum value. And the reason it does that is because traffic channels are transient, they're on and they're off, so you don't want to average that. If they're controlled channels, they're continuously on, so it's okay to do an average measurement. And then I'm going to leave the network ID checked. Now for the gains and loss settings, if I'm using the antennas directly on top of the scanner, I'll leave those at 0 because they're unity gain antennas, basically meaning whatever gain they have is offset by the connections. Very little gain. But if I am using something like a Yagi or a directional antenna that does have a high gain, I can adjust for it here. And typically you're going to have a cable that you have to connect it with, and that's going to have some loss associated with it. So you could adjust for those type of settings here if you're using something different than the ones that we provided.
Yeah, that would be helpful as well. I know when they were doing they were just testing out the simulcast system, and the way they were testing for kind of the quasi testing of a building is they would roll up next to the building and put like a 10 dB or 20 dB attenuator on their antenna.
Yeah.
And that supposedly simulates, with quotation marks, the level in the building. So is that kind of, you get it. Yeah. So is that kind of what this could be done here as well? You could. Attenuation, basically.
Exactly. I come from an RF background where we measure everything. So there's a lot of folks that still work with something called a link budget, that's basically says
a theoretical link budget, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and that's great in a lab. It doesn't work in real world.
You notice that, eh?
Yeah.
Well, it puts us in a big, high-level theoretical theater, but then, as you mentioned, we got all the variables. And this is great to see if we wanted to hook onto our donor antenna for a BDA, if they're reporting something, we can look backwards with, adding the right gain and say, what are we, what's coming into our BDA from our donor? What are we seeing from the towers around us?
I'm glad you said that. You're going to like something I'm going to show you here in just a few minutes. So the other system I'm going to add to my test is an EDAC system. Now, have you guys heard of EDAX before?
Yeah, that's the system we just kicked off. That was the one that Ingham County were on the 460, but we got rid of it so we could have this the P25.
Well,
So as of last month, we don't use it anymore.
So most EDAX systems are being phased out for P25.
Yeah.
In fact, I set mine up as a P25, but they put everything on hold due to COVID. So I can't do a deep foot on this because it's still EDAX, but I can still measure receiver signal strength.
Okay.
And for that, I'm just going to do the first 4 channels. I'm going to group those together. I'm going to call this my EDAX group. Once I've got the channels grouped, it kind of goes right into gains and losses because there's nothing else besides power. There is the scan averaging option. And in grid testing, it doesn't do much for you because in grid testing, we're reducing a single measurement for each grid area. Now, people that do a lot of walk testing and drive testing, they kind of complain that the scanner provides too much data, so they want to slow the scanner down. And that's where this scan averaging is. You can turn this to time sampling, and instead of every 100 milliseconds, you can tell it to give you one every 1,000 milliseconds if you want to measure it per second.
Okay.
But for grid testing, you can just leave it in normal mode. One of the other, let's say you got a system that's not P25 and you're not quite sure how to set it up, you can always use the custom channel power measurement option. It works the same way. You click on the plus sign, non-uniform. You can pick whatever band you want. Most people use the public safety band. I prefer using the top one because it goes from 10 megahertz to 6 gigahertz. I can put any frequency I want within that range. I can even specify how wide the channel is and add that in there. I can create it.
Well, if you're doing a constant carrier test somewhere, you're generating your own signal.
Exactly. This is where you would set the. And if you're using a test transmitter, most test transmitters have either a 25 or 30 kilohertz wide generated signal, so you can adjust for that here as well.
Yep. So if we want to put in a 800 carrier and go walk a building, just test to see how it would behave, that's where this would be coming handy.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And since you have the ability to test LTE at the same time, I'm going to show you how to set up a couple LTE channels. Now, the one I'm going to start with, and yes, I've already verified these are on your list, band 14. Band 14 is used for FirstNet, and this is almost a nationwide channel. So I'm going to select LTE, band 14, and under measurement, I want the enhanced top-end auto bandwidth.
That was the question. Sorry, but that got me. Unless you're doing a blind scan, there's a lot of options there. How do you know?
Well, so basically, if you look at the first set of options, it's just going to give you power. And the different power measurements are based on the bandwidth of what you think the channel is. And the same kind of goes through here. It says, well, we can do it for a 1.4 megahertz wide channel, a 3 megahertz wide, or 5 megahertz, or 10 megahertz. I let the scanner figure out what it is. That's why I use the auto bandwidth. Now, the enhanced top end basically is saying, I'm going to look for everything that's within the dynamic range of the scanner for this. And that's up to 16 different, what they call PCIs and LTE. PCIs are the physical cell IDs. They denote a sector.
Yeah. Okay. So if I were to pick an RSSI with like 10 megahertz, but it really only was like a little tiny one at 3, so it's gonna
add noise to your measurement, right?
Yeah. So are you thinking so the blind scan will figure that out for you? I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but if I didn't have the blind scan, would you say your suggestion hit that enhanced top end is your go-to?
Yep, and the auto bandwidth. And then, for band 14, the channel number is 5330. So of our selected channels, I'm going to go to 5330. Now, Verizon and AT&T also have a nationwide channel. Verizon's nationwide channel is in the band 13, 700 megahertz. Same channel measurement, against top end auto signal or auto bandwidth. And that channel is 5230. And AT&T has a nationwide channel, enhanced top end, and that's going to be 5780. Now, I know those by heart because I've only done it for a couple of times. But if you look, those are these three channels right here that are on your list.
Okay. That's our list of little spreadsheet you got there. Mm-hmm.
So that's quite a varied channel list. And if you ever want to check to see what channels you have set to measure, if you click on this M over here, it's going to show you your channel list.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
So one of the nice things is I can save this as a workspace.
Mm-hmm.
And let's call this as MS Michigan State's good enough. And I'm going to say, okay, what's nice that I've saved this workspace, if I happen to select one of these columns and I click this in, it's going to delete it. If I happen to click this one, it's going to delete everything.
Right.
But if I tell it to load my workspace back, there's all my channels.
Let me ask you this. Now, if that begins to get a little full, how do you housekeep? You have to do that through your actually explore into the. You can't do it from this device. You have to actually take it out of the file.
Oh, you mean if I wanted to delete?
How can you delete workspace? I guess.
The easiest way is for me is to go through here, go to your tablet,
okay,
and you go to the SeeHawk Touch. And if you look under here, if I go by type, you'll see these ones with the .wos.
Okay.
These are all the workspaces.
Okay, so it's not in a workspace file then. It's kind of
no, it saves it to the root directory. In fact, if I deleted some of these, and I probably will do it because I'm getting kind of overloaded with them.
All right. So that's what I was kind of thinking. So there isn't any real elegant way
Not really.
to do it without. Okay,
yeah,
that's fine.
You can do it through your tablet if you go to the My Files, internal storage, SeeHawk Touch, and then you can do them this way as well. So like this one.
Is it logical if you're tied to your tablet that you can make your tablet part of OneDrive and just share files up that way? Can you access those? You should be able to send those up to a shared cloud drive.
I think he's good. Are you going to cover that a little later?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, he's got the little.
So the one thing I have to figure out, because I'm still using a pre-release version of software, and I found a bug in it, and I think, yeah. So when I saved my workspace, it didn't save my grouping. I think yours might be a little different. So let me just create my groups real quick. Bring those back in here real quick.
Yeah, I did know it did update to another version of the software. I don't know if that.
I have a question for you while you're setting up your group. So can you export any of this out to like MATLAB or anything if you've had to do more like detailed engineering work?
Post-processing, I think.
Yeah, you can. And so when you downloaded the software, one of the things you got in there was something called an auto export utility.
Okay.
That auto export utility will create a CSV file.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure because, I mean, Joe will probably have more need for that when he's doing modeling in the future, especially if they have to do proposals and things. And I know that originally it used to be a pain in the butt, but then again, I haven't done commercial scanning for 11 years. So what we used to do 11 years ago and what we can do today are very different.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think we can put that in like our auxiliary, but once you get done with the main thing, that'll be something we're interested in. One
Okay.
of our couple of questions.
Sure.
Not to sidetrack what you're doing right now, but yeah, we are interested in whole processing discussion.
Very cool. So one of the things I want to do, we've got our channels up. I want to make sure it says indoor grid at the top. Now, if yours only says indoor, okay. Because
it just says indoor.
So if yours just says indoor, if you click on that, you can change it to indoor grid.
Got it.
Now, that's our frequencies. Now we need floor plans. And we work with JPEGs or images, or image files, JPEG or PNG files. What we're going to do is we're going to put that on our SeeHawk Touch tablet into a folder called Indoor Maps. That's where those images go.
Gotcha.
So when I hit next, it's going to ask me for my indoor map selection. Now, if I've worked with an image before, I have something called a tab file. And a tab file is nothing more than a pointer to an image file. And when you have data, it kind of lets the image and data kind of merge to show where it's supposed to go on the map. Now, if I just have a plain image file, I have to do this registration process. I can also take a picture with the tablet and use that image to create a grid test with.
The old fire escape route.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm going to load and register an image file. What it's doing in the background is it's opening up that indoor maps folder. And just to kind of give you an idea, I'm going to pick a building that's kind of odd shaped because not all buildings are square. And the reason I have to give this a registration is because I have to figure out how big my grid areas are. Yeah. There are two ways to give it scale. That's the manually register option. That's where you put in coordinate data like latitude and longitude that kind of equate to where that building is. That takes a lot of time. Just as accurate and much, much quicker as this register with ruler feature, auto registry really doesn't give it scale. So most people use the register with ruler feature. And if you have a scale bar, that's a great thing. If I didn't have a scale bar, I would probably look on Google Earth to see how wide one of the sides of the building is. If it's a new building and it doesn't exist on Google Earth, I can always zoom in and look for a doorway. And once I find a doorway, I can tap on this map and it's going to bring up this blue line. I have to zoom out a little bit so I can see both sides. And now if I press and keep held down one end, it becomes active and I can move it. Now this is a lot easier to do with my mouse than it is with your fingers or your stylus. This is another reason I like to use my tablet with my laptop. But once you have the line in place, if you tap in the center of it, you can set the scale. And most standard doorways are 3 feet wide.
Just like plan grid, when you want to set up plan grid. Yeah.
And then once I click next, it says, what do you want to call this project? I'm going to call it MS for Michigan State. And here are the default measurements. If I'm just doing an RSSI scan, it's going to do the maximum value. Whereas we set it to control, it defaults to average. If we had left it on traffic, it would have went to max. SINAR is average, and then you have some for DMR as well as Tetra. You hit OK. And that's your floor plan. Now we have to put grids on there. And we're going to work with these icons on the very far left to do that. The square with the plus sign, that's the one that lets me add a grid. So when that's highlighted blue and I tap on my map, it's going to ask me how many columns and rows do I want. Now you have the ability to go as high as 30 by 30 if you need 900. That's going to take a while. Mm-hmm. Because my building is odd shaped, I'm actually going to do a 5 by 5 grid. I can change how thick the lines are, or if I want to change, I don't want to have a black grid, I want to use green and yellow. I can do that. But now I have to make it fit my building. And that's where the next icon, that's the square with the pencil inside. That's the edit feature. Once that's highlighted, I can tap on my grid. I can grab one corner and make it bigger. And if you watch, these numbers down here are going to change based on the size of the grid and the scale we gave it. And if I need to rotate, I just grab one corner. Now, one of the things I've kind of noticed is it actually is easier to adjust when you have the image in the center of the picture. And it's still, and then sometimes it likes to be like that. There, that's what I want. I know people that do this, you know, we make it fairly easy, but I've seen people just, you know, zoom in just to make sure it's like exact. You know, when it comes out, you can't really tell. But the reason I did 25 is I knew some of these grid areas are going to fall outside my building. This is going to happen quite often, especially if you have like atriums where, you know, the second floor is open to the level below. It's a lot easier just to use this trash can on this side to highlight those and take them out of the test.
Flip them right out there. That's cool.
This is also helpful. Let's say you're testing a building and they can't find the keys and you can't get access. Well, if they happen to find the keys later, you can toggle it back into test mode.
Okay.
Yeah. Normally,
so did you have to save that or anything after that?
Not yet.
We don't. You deleted them or okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Basically, it's a toggle switch. I can turn it off or turn it on.
Oh, by clicking in it once you've selected that option. Okay.
Yep. Now, this next one allows you to put a comment. So a lot of times, if you take something out of test mode, someone's going to ask you why. This allows you to put a comment inside that test area. So you can say outside building. And this goes all the way to the report phase.
Okay.
So let's say I want to make sure I cover this very top portion. Well, I can do that by adding another grid. I just go back up to my plus sign, tap on this, and it's only going to take a 1x1 grid. So basically one box. I'm just going to leave the default color so you can kind of see the idea of difference. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Then I'm also going to look at grid 1 compared to grid 2. And what I'm really looking at is this area size. I want to make sure grid 2 is roughly the same area size. So I'm going to put this in edit. I'm going to highlight the grid. And then you get it down to about 3,500. I might have to zoom in just a little more. And that's pretty darn close. Nobody's really going to complain about that kind of a difference. And then I can put that there. And there. So that's how you add multiple grids. Now, if we go down to the icon that has the arrows on the top and the side, this is the one that allows you to adjust your center portions of the grid. So I'm going to zoom in. And what I'm really looking for is to make sure that nothing is like in between a wall. And if they are, I'm just going to adjust them over a little. This way you know exactly where you stood during your test. And I'm just going to go through this really quickly. Sometimes you're not going to be able to know exactly where you're standing until you get out on site. You can adjust them then as well.
Yeah. I see it now. Right. Yeah, because sometimes what looks good on a map doesn't look so good once you get to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those probably do a lot of moving in the field.
Yeah.
If it's really that important.
Yeah. Then once you're done with that, we're going to annotate our critical areas. That's the triangle icon. And those are your stairwells, your elevator lobbies, your fire control room, emergency exits. Now this next icon, this allows me to put a what we call a test point anywhere I want that doesn't pass or fail. Anywhere I want to make a measurement just to kind of see what the levels are like. A lot of people like to do this outside the building. We call it a reference point.
Yeah, baseline.
Yep. But one of the nice features about using a reference point is if I scroll over, I can use it as a selected reference. And when I use something as a selected reference, it's going to tell me the difference between that measurement and any other measurement I make inside the building. So it gives you an idea of what your building penetration loss is like. Some people like to do this on the four corners of the roof. You can put as many as you need wherever you want on the map. Now, these icons, the second row that are all in circles, they're basically there for your information. They really don't do anything for the test other than provide you with information. And what I mean by that, if I wanted to annotate where the antennas are on this floor plan, if I want to add them, I just click on the plus sign. I can specify whether it's an omni or a directional antenna. Let's say they're directional, and they're all set at 90 degrees. It just allows you to place them on your floor plan, and you can put as many as you need. And
so this would be like post-installation testing then for a gas?
Exactly. And you can move them around if you need to, or if you need to make changes to all of them. So let's do this button. And instead of being directional, let's say they're all omni. And then when I go back, but like I said, it's basically there for your information. Most people like them turned off.
Well,
so we got our first level in, and now let's say this is a multi-story building and I want to bring in the next level. Well, one of the key things I need is I need an image, a separate image for each level. So if I look on my tablet, you know, there's a level 1, 2, 3, and 4. I need an image for each level. And to bring in the second level, I just click on the floor plan name. This is where it asks if I want to save changes. I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to add my next floor. And it's that same process. We're going to load and register an image file. I'm going to bring in level 2. Register with the ruler. This time I'll use the scale bar. And that's 80 feet. And instead of drawing my grids all over again, I'm going to use this last icon right here, the one with the down arrow. What that does is it imports a grid floor layout. I'm going to bring it in from level 1. I'm just going to tell it not to bring my reference point. And there's your grid for the second level.
there you go. Yeah. Like that.
Yeah.
I figured you had that part figured out. That'd be big for a long day.
Yeah. So yeah, this is what I spend my time in the office doing. Is I bring in all my frequencies and floor plans. And what's nice is when I get to this point, I can actually get out of the test. If it asks me to save, make sure you hit save, and I'm going to say yes. I could turn everything off. And once I get to that building, I can turn everything back on, go to my test list, and select indoor grid test. And I call this MC. Yep.
Thanks, MS.
Yeah.
The MS. Oh, yeah, MS. All right. Besides the name I gave it, it automatically adds in a date timestamp. So you never overwrite anything. So you'll see I have some things that are renamed the same thing. And that's just because every time it gives it a new date timestamp. Somebody asked a little bit, you can share these files, you can upload them, or you can set them to an FTP. That's one way we can do that. If you click the share button, it puts it in a queue for you to share, and you can do whatever you want, OneDrive, all that good stuff. So that answers that question that came up earlier. But to resume my test, I just got to make sure everything is turned on. It's going to make sure you're still connected to your scanner. And it's going to open your project. And at this point, you're pretty much ready to test. The one last thing I like to double check, depending on, if especially when you have multiple people using the same gear, always double check your thresholds before you start. And you can get to those by clicking on this little blue door. And here are your thresholds. Now, I can make any adjustments to these, but it only will affect this project. Since you guys are always going to be testing in the same jurisdiction, you might want to set global default parameters. That way, whenever you open up a project, this is what they will open up to. To do that, you just go to the 3 vertical dots, settings, indoor grid, and if you scroll down, this is where you can set all your default settings. So anytime you open a project, it opens with these.
Are there some suggested, like, we might not know right off the bat? Are those kind of some, like...
For P25, these are the ones that I personally recommend. And the reason I use these values is because it's coming from this. If I can find that page. There. I based those values on this chart right here that's coming from the technical service bulletin. And the reason I used 18, it's basically between 15.7 and 19. Most of the stuff I'm using is situated for DAQ score 3.0, so I could probably even go lower. And the reason I use 2%, it's the lowest of all the BER ratings, so that's where I get my 18 and 2% for my thresholds.
Okay. Got you.
For LTE, the default measurements are probably not very good. I don't really worry about carrier or RSSI. I think the default measurements for LTE SINAR is at +10, and that's like really, really bad. I mean, a +10 SINAR is achievable in probably a lab environment. You're not going to see a lot of that in the outdoor network unless you're standing right next to an antenna. -5 is what I use for SINAR, and I use an RSRP value of -100. Now, I might not be able to do a VoLTE call with those kind of values, but I still can send a data message if I'm doing text or something like that. So that's where I set my LTE.
Oh. Okay.
Now,
so those are things we'll have to play around with.
Yeah, exactly. And, if you talk to the operators, they're never going to agree. Verizon's not going to agree with AT&T or T-Mobile. They're all going to have their own little different target values. I pick ones that I think are kind of, no matter which network, it's still going to show some kind of connectivity, and I can at least get a message or an SOS out if I have to.
Yeah, that text message that you were talking about.
Yeah.
You can be pretty low, like you said, and still get a text message out, but you can't use that voice over LTE.
Right, but here's the other thing. Most networks, with the exception of Verizon, if I try to attempt a voice call and the metrics don't apply for it, it will force me to hand over to a 3G technology.
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
So that's the reason why I picked those values. But at this point, we're ready to start testing. I'm going to start with my reference point. I'm going to make sure that the top circle is highlighted blue. I'm going to click on that. It's going to turn yellow. And once it turns yellow, I'm going to hit that Wi-Fi icon, and the scanner is going to start. So here are my LTE channels. This is carrier power. This is being averaged, and this is the average that will be reported. Current SINAR measurement, the average SINAR measurement, and over here is RSRP. And then over here is my PCI, physical cell ID. Now the stuff that I'm just doing an RSSI scan, you can see that there's an M, and currently channel 1 is -120-ish. I'm going to report a neg 85 because at one time it did get keyed up. Now it got keyed up to neg 83. So I'm going to report the strongest value. Now for my P25, some of these are being used for traffic, and that's why you're seeing some of these get keyed up. But it looks like this channel 5 is probably the control channel. It's coming in very weak. I've got a low sine R and I've got a high bit error rate, which means this is probably going to fail. Whereas some of the other traffic channels, like, you know, there could be somebody that's fairly close. So like I said, reference points don't pass or fail. They just let you know they've been tested. They turn blue. And then once I have my reference point, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to walk into the building. I'm going to highlight that test area. And I'm going to click on that Wi-Fi icon. And you'll notice this add to report is grayed out. And it will be grayed out until the data ready for LT or for the P25 has at least 3 measurements per channel.
Oh.
And then once that's when it becomes active.
You gotta stand there for a couple seconds then.
Yeah.
Okay.
But compare this to when you were doing yours with the spectrum analyzer, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's no question about that. Because we have to split through bands.
Exactly.
And then look at and find each carrier within the spectrum and say, yeah, T-Mobile's about here, Sprint's about there.
And I could probably walk test, or I can actually grid test faster than most people walk test. And I'll show you how I do that here in just a second. But you'll see right now, it's showing me a neg 66, which is a passing value, but it's showing this in red. And I'm not sure what I'm looking at. And that's because right now it's trying to grade everything. And you can see that by looking over here where it shows channel and the word all. Right now it's looking at all those channels. So if I click on the word all, I can tell it to monitor my EDAX group. So out of these 4 channels, the strongest one is neg 85, and it's only being graded for downlink power. Now, if I want to look at my P25 group, the strongest out of these 7 channels is neg 98. Downlink frame bit error rate is passing, and downlink sine R is passing, but my downlink power is failing. Well, if I was in one of the jurisdictions that used a lower value for power, let's say minus 102, even though I've already collected the data, I can re-update based on whatever the thresholds are.
What do you usually see for that? Because we're usually like about 105 or so. Like, power.
It really depends. Like I said, I've seen everything from, you know, there's still quite a few jurisdictions that use neg 95. I've seen neg 102. I've seen neg 105, and I've even seen neg 110.
Right. Well, a lot of that has to do, though, with the fact that you might be able to receive that signal, but if it's that low, your signal going back to the tower might not make it. That's why it's usually a good indicator. Yeah, you're driving beyond it.
Exactly, and that's why when you're running this, if you do change your power metrics from neg 95, that means these metrics are more important.
Okay.
As long as I can get a very good, you know, bit error rate, 0 is perfect, and my sine R is above 20, that's pretty good RF environment. So that lets me know it's going to pass.
Okay.
And then you can also look at each one of your LTE channels. So this is the Verizon channel. DX is RSRP, sine R and power. So it's passing. The FirstNet channel is passing, and AT&T is also passing. Now, when I'm doing testing, go ahead.
Is this going to spit out like a 20-page report each? How does that work at the end, or am I getting a little ahead of ourselves?
You're just a little bit ahead.
Okay, all right.
We'll cover that in a minute. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So when I'm running a test or in the middle of doing testing, I actually like to look at something that's passing. And the reason I do that, it lets me know everything is working okay. My scanner's on, my antenna's on, and that way, if something bad does happen, hopefully it stands out. What I mean by that, I just pulled my antenna off of my scanner. If I don't happen to catch that all these values are really, really low, I'm just kind of waiting for this add to report to become active, because that's what happens after a while. You know, you're on the 10th floor and you've been doing this for an hour or so. But if I've gone from neg 88 to neg 124 in a very short distance, that's something to make you want to make sure your antenna's on. So all you got to do is reach around and tighten your antenna back up. And get that back on there. And then I can retest that. Whenever you retest a grid area, it overwrites the previous data points.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Now, the way that I can grid test faster than most people walk test is once I've in this grid area, I've already kind of done a couple points, so I kind of know which channels to kind of monitor to see if everything is behaving as it should. So when I move to this next grid area, if I'm looking at my P25 channel, you know, all right, my power is still right there on the edge, but SINAR and bit error rate are good, so those look, you know, reasonable. As soon as I hit add to report and before I move off, I've already highlighted my next spot. That way, as soon as I get there, I can tell it to start scanning. Now, let's say you're also have to annotate either DAQ or power measurements. Anything in blue allows you to modify. So all you do is click in the square and you can add a DAQ score or uplink measurements in here as well.
Oh, okay. So it's a field that's you can.
Yeah, it's just a user defined kind of thing. But let's say you're in the middle testing and something looks a little funny. All you have to do is pull up this little blue circle. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to see this little arrow. If I keep clicking on it, I eventually will come to the channel list. And next to each frequency or technology we have a dedicated spectrum analysis view. So if I look at my P25 channel, it's going to bring up my P25, looking at channel 5. I've got channel decode on. So that means at the bottom, I'm getting channel power, my SINAR, and my frame bit error rate. Now, some people get a little confused between channel power and integrated signal power. Integrated signal power is the power within the window. So if I reach over and kind of add more bandwidth, that number is going to get stronger. So that's what we do for P25. The nice thing is, you know, it puts a marker there. If I want another marker, I can click on these two double arrows. I can add another marker. I can do a peak search. I can manually move it, or I can key in a frequency. I can take a screenshot.
Yeah, that's cool.
Or I can go back.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah.
To be able to hop over, because being old school, you know, being raised in the spectrum analyzer.
Yep.
You know, I still like to see it. You
Me
know,
too.
even with the machine showing me numbers all on, sometimes it's nice just to hop over, see the spectrum, and
exactly. One of the other things is we do the same thing for LTE. So if you want to pick your first net channel, you click on the spectrum analyzer. The one thing is it defaults to 5 megahertz. You can change it to 10. As long as the decode's on, you're going to get power, cell ID, RSRP, RSRQ, and SINAR. And if you want to,
I like that. Oh, you can pause it, you freeze it,
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Then you can do your max hold and min hold.
Yep, it's down is min hold, up is max hold. And if you have two antennas on there, you can switch between antennas. Yeah, I want to say I do have an antenna on RF too. I'm surprised. And you can turn it back off. And like I said, getting back to your test is fairly simple. Now, let's say you're in the
And it's
middle
nice
of.
to put you right there.
Oh yeah. Let's say you're in the middle
But
of
instead of having to
test. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, each time you push one of those icons, it puts you right in the spectrum analyzer where you want to be.
Exactly.
You don't hunt around for it.
Yeah. You don't have to have any knobs to turn or twist to try to get it to happen.
Very nice.
Now, let's say you're in the middle of testing and someone says, hey, we got something going on here. Can you go somewhere else for a bit? You say, sure. You can stop where you're at on one floor and change your level and go right into testing on the next floor.
Oh.
Or you can even turn it off and, once I hit that add to report, that data has been saved.
Okay.
Here we go. And of course, I can go right back into floor one. Now, when you come to these critical areas, even though we've tested the grid area, we still have to test these critical areas separately. You just highlight them, they're going to turn yellow, and you test. Now, a lot of people like to annotate the stairwells or the critical points, so you can do that in the middle while you're in the test.
Oh, so you can tell it. Okay. Yeah, that's helpful because you can tell it where you're at.
Mm-hmm. And any questions on the testing part of this? The testing part's the easy part. It's all the prep.
Can you annotate any of those squares?
Yep.
Just like you did the critical point?
Yep.
A little note like room, room 35.
So every time you're running a test, you're going to see this comment section. So you can add a comment here.
That would be nice if you're looking at a full process and if you're not against the grid. Oh yeah, that's the room one by room.
So you could do it while you're doing the test, or I could do it with this icon here. So this is the comment I entered, and if I wanted to go back and annotate it or edit it, I could do that as well. So either way.
Okay.
So let's pretend we've finished testing this. And I want to go and look at the equipment room and do some testing in the equipment room. All I have to do is click on my floor plan name, make sure I save any changes it asks me to. And right next to where it shows select floor, you're going to see ER. And this is going to let you add an equipment room. You can take a picture, you can load an image, or use one of the default ones. We have a duplex, an isolation test, as well as a simplex. Most common is the duplex. And what it really is just a simplified head-in room. Let me take these test points away. Let me just highlight them and delete them. So somebody was saying earlier about testing the input and outputs from the donor site. You could do that right here. If I wanted to look at my input coming into my BDA from my donor, I'm going to put a test point there. Holy cow, that was loud. And I'm going to do the same to the output of my BDA. I could send this all the way out to my remote, even on the antenna if I wanted to, and of course the path back. And the test is the same. You just highlight your test point, and now I've got measurements associated that are coming from my BDA and from donor. And if there's a monitor port, I can connect the scanner directly to it. Just use
right, that's what I was wondering about. So is there some notion of attenuator or auto attenuation or limit, with this equipment?
Yes, and I'm going to give you my personal recommendation. If you ask our engineering team, they say you can go 0 or even a little bit higher than 0. I do not like going that high because if you look at the dynamic range of the scanner, the sweet spot is from neg 25 to neg 120. And that, what I mean by that is the accuracy of those measurements. So I try to keep it below neg 25 on the input. And attenuators are a lot cheaper than you having to replace an RF board in a scanner.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Yeah, that's kind of to be honest with you, at that point, I would probably be back to either spectrum analyzer or watt meter.
Ah.
Just, but it like 10, but I mean, or you can put an attenuator on. I don't worry about burning out the front end on it.
Yeah. But here's another thing. So you can take measurements, or let's say, on, whichever test point you want. Once you highlight that test point, next to each frequency, you get another spectrum view. And when I click on that, I can now take a snapshot of that. And this is going to be 5 public safety. I can save that to my indoor grid. So now when I generate my report, not only am I going to get all these test points and measurements, it's also going to have that embedded screenshot.
Oh.
So that's the equipment room testing. It allows you to pretty much, put those test points where you want and run your test. To get back into the actual floor plans, you just click on the 2 double squares. Make sure you save your changes and click on the double squares again, and you're back into the actual grid test. Now, somebody asked earlier about how we report this. Let's pretend we finished testing this and we're ready to generate our report. To do that, we're going to go to the page icon up here, the one with the little corner turned over. And this is how you specify how you want your report to look. I can report as a group of channels or as an individual channel. If I don't want to report them, I can unselect them. And you'll notice if I report things that pass, I get a building pass. As soon as I add something that fails, it's going to fail. Just to kind of give you an idea, I'm going to report this, my P25. It's failing because I didn't get 90% or 95% of my areas passing. So I'm going to include that one. That was my highest level of that. I'm not going to report it as a group. I'm going to report my first net channel. And this is a group just so you can kind of get an idea. So basically anything that I'm going to put a check mark in, I'm going to get at least 2 pages per floor that I've tested. Now that's my channels. Over here on my floors result, this is where I can reorder my floors, or if I don't want to include it in the report, I can uncheck it. I can actually delete it. I still need 95% of my areas to pass and 99% of my critical points. Once I have that all set up, I'm going to click on this little word icon. Pretty much tell it to include stuff I tested, exclude the stuff I didn't test. I include my spectrum analysis screenshots and my equipment room. Transmitter results, that's if you created an antenna file. I'm going to give it a building name. And this is why I tell people to go ahead and generate one report for at least one channel before you leave, because it doesn't take long. And the report itself is pretty much done. I'm just waiting for the OK. There it is. And that's going to be saved to your tablet under SeeHawk Touch in a folder called Indoor Grid Report. And as I mentioned, it's a Word document, which means you can edit it. And what most people like to edit is this information, who, what, where, and when. This is my group of frequencies, and it's over, it's passing. My other 2 channels I'm reporting are failing, which is why I get a building fail report. Information about my scanner. Yes, my calibration has expired. And these are the thresholds that are being used for grading. And then you're going to get a high-level overview by frequency. So one of the things you're going to notice is because I have an odd-shaped building, it takes up a lot of space, and there's a lot of blank space. Well, I could do that. And then there's my measurements. if I didn't do DAQ or uplink measurements, I can actually just delete those. Now, here's one thing you could do, but it won't work. In fact, I've had an HJ talk to me about this because a customer went in here and changed this fail to a pass. The problem is you can't modify the image.
Right, because that's a baked-in image there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so but you could modify the table because you have no control over that.
Right. And when you report something as a single frequency and you have reference point data for it, it's going to take these values and compare them to here and tell you what the difference is. So this is where this downlink loss column comes in. And then at the end, here's our BDA and our screenshots.
Yeah, I like being able to put those screenshots.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, there's more from it myself. Than
Yep.
I think a manager, somebody's gonna be too impressed with it, but it would help me as a kind of just a log, just a reference.
Yep. Do you guys have any questions right now?
No, that's good so far. I mean, yeah, it's definitely.
Well, we're right at the 2-hour mark. Do you guys want to take like a 10-minute break and then we'll come back and we'll start talking about some more features and then we'll spend some time on the commercial wireless stuff?
Yeah, let's do that. We'll get back to you in about 10 minutes or so.
All right, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this on mute. I'm going to leave everything open, so all I'm going to do is hit mute and take my dog outside, and I'll be right back.
All right.
All right. See you, Ted.
All right, Dale, we're back if you're whenever.
I am back as well. Any questions on the?
Oh, you're recording?
Yes, I am.
You are. Good. That's good. Good information to have. Anything you guys want to bring up or ask right now? Questions?
Well, you don't have to answer. We're talking about the hallway, the dongles.
Good question. And we might be getting about the Wi-Fi part, just so when we were going to cover it. But we have the dongle, but it's just 2.4. What if you wanted to do both 5.8 and 2.4?
Did you buy the dongle from us?
It came with it, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
at least I'm assuming, unless I'm wrong. When I talked to, I think Brandon at tech support worked with me a little bit, and he had thought it was only 2.4. Should they be dual band?
Mine is the one I got.
Oh, well, maybe we're overlooking something, and we could try it in real time together then, or something.
Yep, I'll show you a little bit about Wi-Fi here in just a couple minutes. I just got a few more things I want to talk to you about public safety, and then we'll move on to
Sounds good. Okay, that's good.
All right, so one of the things I told you when we were going through the slides is that we control the ports with the software. So when you're connected to your scanner, if you go up to the 3 vertical dots here, you're going to see antenna frequency range. And this is where I can specify, if I'm using a UHF VHF antenna on port 1, I can control port 1 and say, all right, go up to 550. And then if I have anything above 550 megahertz set to scan, it's going to go through port 2. But like I said, what most people want to do is they'll damage port 1 somehow and they can't get the antenna on. So they'll uncheck it and force everything over to port 2.
Oh, okay.
So that's how we control the ports. The other thing I want to tell you is when you do a public safety grid test, outside of the report, what also happens in the background is you create a project folder. And this project folder is the one you want to archive, because inside here are your floor plans with the grid file and the tab file. And more importantly, it's got your raw data. So if I click on any one of these spreadsheets, so this is my area test points, there's one for critical test points and reference points. And if I open that up, somebody asked if we could take this data into another tool. You sure can, because here are all your raw measurements. More importantly, if for some reason I deleted all these channel lists, I can recreate them because it tells me what I called them, as well as the actual frequencies. And there's also coordinate data. Now, this coordinate data is based on how you registered your map. So if you actually did the coordinate data, these coordinates would be latitude and longitude. So that's your raw data file. That's the one you want to archive. If you ever have to retest anything, I can recreate any test I've ever done as long as I have this file.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Now, let's start with Wi-Fi. I'll start with that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete everything off of here. I've got my Wi-Fi dongle on, and there's 2 things that we do for Wi-Fi, and I like kind of doing them in steps. You don't have to, but one of the things I like doing is my Wi-Fi band and did it change?
We're gonna play along with you a little bit here.
Okay.
What we're doing.
Huh.
So we got our dongle plugged in, and under band, it just says Wi-Fi band at this point.
Right.
Those other things.
Oh, I was like, why isn't it coming up? I got to be in indoor mode. I was like, there's something missing here.
Okay.
So you got to be in indoor mode. I'm going to select Wi-Fi, and then I'm going to do this blind scan. And then I'm going to enable it.
Gotcha.
And the reason I like doing a blind scan is it's going to tell you not only what you expect to see, it's going to show you a lot of things you don't expect to see. So I'm just going to do a blind scan. In fact, a lot of times when I travel and I get a hotel room that has really bad Wi-Fi, I will do this, and then I'll go complain until they give me a new room. So basically, the measurement's fine. I'm looking at power. I'm just going to hit apply, and I'm just going to use my recent tab file. And I'm going to put a marker on here, and I'm going to click the blue button. The blue triangle starts your scanner, and you'll see that it's turned yellow. If it's yellow, that means this data is not being saved. Now, if you want to save this data, you want to make sure you hit the red circle. That's going to tell the scanner that you're recording, and that should be green. So if you see it green, you're recording data.
Yep.
So what I'm really interested in is what's being detected. So if I click on this, it's showing me everything that can be seen. And you'll notice there's quite a few just sitting here in my office, including my neighbor's Wi-Fi.
Yeah. We're seeing that. How about to see if we're getting the 5.8 then the 2.
So if you look at the channels, that's one way to tell. So here's some 5 gig, and here's this, and this is the 2 gig.
Yeah, the SSI isn't really. Does that look like a? Maybe that's a 5.8. So if it's channel like 165 or something.
Yeah, 165 I think that's the 5 gig stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so it's working.
Okay.
Okay.
But what's kind of nice is I actually prefer the bar chart because this kind of lets you know what's being seen.
Yeah, and a nice amplitude. Well, yeah, that is cool. So good. So we're getting both of the spectrum or bands, I should say.
So to give you an idea why I like the blind scan better than just doing a regular scan, it is a little slower because it's going through the entire band of both networks. But like I said, it points out stuff you don't expect. We did a blind scan at an NFL stadium during game day, and they told us there were 2,400 access points within the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
When we got done with our report, we reported over 3,600 access points that were detected. And that's because a lot of the vendors were using Wi-Fi for their pay access. A lot of fans were turning their phones on as hotspots, and it created a lot more interference than they knew about. So that's why I like the blind scan. It tells you about, yeah, exactly. It tells you about a lot of noise. The other thing is it tells you the channelization. And a lot of people that install networks kind of get lazy and they just leave the default channels. Well, that kind of creates interference. And that's why, especially hotels do that. You'll see that all the channels are pretty much the same. That creates a problem. But once you've done a blind scan for a test, that's one. But let's say you're more interested in just the SSIDs that you want to, kind of know. So I'm going to delete my data because I really don't. But you can still run the blind scan wizard to find the SSIDs that you want to scan. And I'm going to try to pick some of mine. And and a soda to anybody who knows what Xiphius is.
What?
Does anybody know what that is?
Nope.
It is the Latin word for swordfish. And the only reason I have it in there is because I like to go fishing. That's a 5G. I'm not sure that's mine, but so when I do a specific SSID scan, so I'm looking at a couple channels, it gives me a little different information. And to show you what that information is like, once it starts recording, I bring up my table. It's not only going to give me, the bandwidth and all that other information. It's going to give me my MAC address, signal strength, and towards the back here, I'm going to get channel utilization, which is what most people want to see besides power. So this is when you're looking at specific SSIDs. It gives you a little bit different information, but I actually prefer the Wi-Fi blind scan because it tells me a lot more about the environment that I'm testing in. it tells me why some of these might be bad.
Right.
So that's what you do for Wi-Fi. Any
Gotcha.
questions?
Yeah, that was helpful. Yeah, definitely good, because I thought we were limited to one or the other.
No. And, you know, when it comes to Wi-Fi testing, we do a really good job on the RF interface. If you want to look at throughput, we have the ability, but it requires you setting up a dedicated server.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Most people don't test that way. If you have like EcoHow or Air Magnet, those tools, I think, do a better job on the throughput testing, where I think we're better at the air interface portion for it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And if it got to that level, we'd be kicking it off to the Wi-Fi group anyways.
Okay.
You know, like we're the RF guys. You know?
Awesome.
That's kind of where we. You know, yeah. So something we don't have to really worry about.
Right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about doing line scans for indoor mode.
Right. So, and how about, so now, is this more for like the walk test?
If you want to do a walk test or a grid test, either way.
Okay.
But
because I see myself doing the walk test a lot.
Okay.
Where it puts the dots on the thing more than
exactly.
The grid, just so you know.
Exactly. So one of the things we do is we make blind scans real easy by clicking the magic wand.
Yeah, I like that.
And then you just select the bands. Now, what I did is once I knew which I created a workspace. And I set up 2 blind scans based on whichever bands I want to see. So this is my higher band, starting with band 25, going all the way to the TDLT band 41. And I think if I saved it correctly, let me load the other workspace. Blind scan 1. These are all the other bands. The reason I do it in 2 groups is because I'm a little on the old school side. And one of the other things that's a little bit different in commercial wireless testing is that these bands overlap. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to do my first portion of the blind scans. It's basically the 1900 band, 2100 band, 850, and then, of course, all the 700 megahertz bands, and then bands 25, 26, and 27. So when I'm doing, I have to make sure I'm in indoor mode. I'm going to hit apply, and then I'm going to load my recent file. Now, the reason I do this is because of, well, this happens in a few different bands, but the one that most people know about is when it happens in band 12. And let's see if it shows up here.
So just to get the other guys on board, so what he's doing now is he's just scanning the whole spectrum and just seeing what's out there. And so it's pulling in it's just pulling everything in. It's even giving you your network. So that's a biggie. Yep. So that's one thing you can't do with a spectrum analyzer. Definitely is
exactly.
So that's thing. Especially if you're a little new to the whole spectrum thing. So the blind scan is kind of where you start.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be outside the building maybe or something, or once you're on site just to get if you're going from country to country, it'll be pretty easy for us once we get this figured out. But like in Dale, you're going all over the place, so you got to do a blind scan probably everywhere time you start.
Exactly. And the reason we can get the network information is we're actually decoding the mobile network code.
Oh.
So one of the things you're going to see is this channel 5110. It belongs to AT&T, and this is in band 12. And you're going to see, next to each band, whether it's being detected or not. One of the things I do is I get a sheet of paper. I'm going to write down for band 2 that I'm seeing channel 900. I'm not sure who it belongs to, but I know 1000 belongs to AT&T. And the reason some of these aren't being decoded is because the power levels are very, very low. You know,
That's what I was thinking. So get yourself set up somewhere. Maybe you
Yeah.
even have to go to a rooftop or something.
Exactly.
So the higher, the more likely you're going to be that network is going to populate. So do you have a little trick if you can't ever,
yes.
figure that out?
So
Okay.
let's look at 900 here. So 900, it's a 10 megahertz wide channel. I'm going to go to the layer 3 information, which is here.
Oh.
And I'm going to put this on a system information block. It's telling me that, for this cell ID, for the channel that I selected, it's MNC code 410. A lot of times you can look that up, or if I go back, how do I get back to the other cell IDs? I think I have to click here. No. Oh, there's another way right here. So you look at the cell IDs that are being detected, and if you see repeated, that's an indication it's the same network. The other thing is, if I go back up to master information block, when I pick one of the ones that is being decoded, I can kind of compare the mobile network code against one or the other. So 410 is coming up. If I didn't know what it was, I could go up here to mobile network code. And I think Wikipedia has, yep, there it is. And then if I do a control F, define 410, and I want to make sure I'm in the US.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pakistan's got the number.
Yeah. And it's showing an international operator. Let's see. Oh. 012012012 410. One. I'm almost positive that's AT&T though. Oh, that's country code. I don't want country code. I want network code.
Oh yeah, we're in the wrong Wikipedia.
Yeah. Country code, list of MNC codes. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah. So now let me try my 410 here. I want Pakistan. AT&T Mobility. So,
and those are some things probably once you get a feel for them,
yeah,
they'll probably repeat.
Exactly. After a while, you're going to see who they belong to. But what I do is I write down, for band 2, which channels I'm seeing in the operator. 1900 is probably one of the toughest bands to do. This one's not too typically hard. This 5035, if you see this channel in band 12, you almost always know it's going to be T-Mobile, and 5110 is always going to be AT&T. Let's see if I can. So this one. Yep. And like I said earlier, if you're looking at one band and you're seeing the operator on 2 different channels, typically you only need to pick one of those channels because the coverage is going to be basically the same. But the reason I write everything down is because once I'm done running my blind scan, I do not run this blind scan wizard. And the reason I don't is because if I picked channel 5110 and picked channel 5780, all I've just done is now I've duplicated my measurements. And if I have a lot of channels, if I can weed out my duplicates, the more other distinct channels I can get. And what I mean by duplicates, let me show you. Let me delete all these. Because of the way LTE bands are created, if I look at band 12, it's the ABC blocks of the 700 megahertz band. So if I go over here and select channel 5110, it's 739 megahertz. Well, if I look at band 17, which is the BC blocks, and I do my channel 5780 that showed up earlier.
It's going to show up as the
it's the same frequency. So if
That's
I
how
measure it
it's
in band
confusing.
12 or band 17, it's the same information.
But it must be the same carrier, right?
It is. It's the exact same carrier.
Yeah.
In fact, let me go ahead and I've got them both up there just to kind of give you an idea what it looks like. Now you will see slight differences in power because we're looking at them in different instances in time. But if you were to graph them out, there'd be like, next to no difference at all. So the first thing you're going to notice is the cell IDs being detected are exactly the same. So if I look at 5110 as a bar chart, I've got those 3 cell IDs. And if I looked at 5780 and bring up the bar chart, it's the same 3 cell IDs. So all I've done is duplicated my measurements. So that's the reason why I take the time to kind of go through. And since you guys are always going to be testing the same area, you probably only have to do this one time. But just understanding that some of those bands are going to overlap is kind of a key thing. And just to kind of give you an idea of how widespread this is in LTE, if you look at band 4, which is the 2100 band, it starts at 2110 and goes all the way down. Well, if you look at band 66, which is one of the newer bands out, also AWS, and if you look at where the channels start, it starts at 2110. So there could be overlap between those bands. The other bands you're going to see this in is in bands 25 and, no, I'm sorry, 26 and 27. Excuse me. So those are just some things to note when you're doing a blind scan. You may get duplicate frequencies that show up in different bands, and that's the reason why I write everything down. Now, before you ask, I've already asked for a feature request to annotate that for you when you do a blind scan. They just haven't had the time to put that in yet.
Okay. That would be helpful. Yeah, so that does help explain a lot of stuff that I've kind of intuitively noticed since I've been looking at the spectrum through this lens of this RF scanner. Is that it's like, wait a second, I look up both of those, and they're like the same frequency. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
Man. And do you know what that's all about? I mean,
it's just the way that they.
Yeah,
it's actually, I'm going to blame the FCC on this one. The FCC is the one that came up with the way these bands, or these EB, that's E-Ultra bands, they were defined by the 3GPP standards and what they and how they're allocated. Now, what has happened since those were allocated, new bands came up, like band 66 is relatively new. And basically what it does is it encompasses everything that was in band 4 and then extends it out a little bit further. So if you look where band 66 stops, I want to say, let's see if I can grab that thing. Yeah. It stops at 2199. And the difference is if you looked at band 4, it stops before 2199. I can't remember the exact number. Let's see if I can tell you. 2145. So it's a much smaller band. So they rebranded band 4 to band 66 in most cases. Most of the operators use band 66 terminology. However, not all of them. So just as long as you're aware that that does occur, that's one of the, and like I said, you guys are going to be testing in the same area quite often. So you probably only have to do this one time because unless you get a change.
We'll get real familiar with the spectrum.
Exactly. And like I said, when you're doing a CDMA test, I don't have the holdover option. But one of the things you're going to notice, let me see if I can remember, it's band 10. And I want to do forward. It's also considered a top end scan because it'll determine all the PNs it can see. Actually, I might refer to your list because it's 526. Yeah. No, I thought it was 4 something.
Sometimes I just end up entering in a little box.
Yeah, you could do that as well.
Instead of scrolling. Yep.
But I thought, well, maybe it is. I thought it was 426. Let me try that. We'll do 426, and we'll add 526. And that's good enough. Let's see if I see anything. Oh, I forgot to turn those other ones off. Oh, well. They might have turned it off in my area as well. I don't see a lot of CDMA anymore.
CDMA is kind of an older technology. You know?
Yeah.
But they use it for like voice fallback or something like that?
Most of the stuff you see now is for charging stations. They'll have a CDMA SIM card in there, and that way they can kind of communicate and let them know, hey, that this is how much usage we've had in the last 24 hours, kind of thing.
Yeah, so low bandwidth.
Yeah. So basically, the PN is considered a pilot, and because it's synchronous, we keep track of what's called pilot delay. But if we're drifting in time to the network, this pilot will change based on the delay. So that's the reason why you need the GPS holdover option. And like I said, CDMA is not that prevalent anymore, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay, gotcha.
Most of the new phones today don't even have the ability to do CDMA. So.
Oh, like you said, so it's more in like those cards you put in, like
exactly.
meters and charging stations and stuff like that.
So
okay.
I'm going to load the workspace we were doing earlier. So I have my 3 LTE channels and my public safety, but this time instead of doing a grid test, I'm going to do it as an indoor walk test. Now, what's different about doing that is from the time I hit start to stop, that's considered one data session. Mm-hmm. The other thing is I can't do multiple floors within like a project frame. Every time I do start and stop is one session. So if I have a 10-story building, I'm going to have 10 files with this. So once I have my channel set up and I click next, it wants to know which channel do you want to monitor during your walk test, because you can only monitor one of them, and that's for the bread train. So typically you want to do a strong channel, and I will normally pick the Verizon channel or the AT&T channel because they do penetrate the buildings the best, 700 megahertz.
700, yeah.
Yeah, and I typically want to see power. You never want to show the label, because what happens is it puts a label next to every dot, which is fine if you're walking in a straight line. But when you start walking in a building, all those labels get overlaid on top of each other and it becomes kind of messy. So I never show the label.
Right.
So we're going to hit apply. I'm going to use my recent tab file. I'm going to start there. So I got to let the tool know where I'm going to be to begin with. And then once I have my spot picked out, I'm going to tell it to record. I'm going to make sure the scan light is green. And before I take my first step, I like to make sure that I'm actually seeing all my channels. So I'm seeing cell IDs on my LTE channels, and I'm seeing the channels change between my P25 and my RSSI scan. And
you're getting data coming.
Exactly. And this is the thematic that I've selected. Now, you can change this later, and I'll show you how we do that. But basically, when you're doing a walk test, you put a marker down anytime you need to change directions.
Right.
And then go over here. Now, one of the things I do like about our tool, we make it really easy for people that have never done this type of testing before. So, you're in the middle of walking, and especially if you're like me, I have a tendency to push things off the map sometimes. You can delete the last marker and say I was actually right there.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I hate that on the enriched pocket. You're screwed. Now, speaking of the enriched, so you can set the dot distance based on your walking pattern and stuff. Is that something how does that work on this?
Okay, so the scanner will try to scan as fast as it can, depending on the number of channels. So what it's basically doing, when you put a marker down, all that data is saved into a buffer until I put my next marker down. And all it does is interpolate it between those two data points. Now, so the faster I walk, the less dense the data is.
I see that.
Yeah.
Or you can pause it too, so if somebody grabs you and starts talking to you, you're not doing it. Yeah.
You bring a good point about the pause. Let's say I want to get to this, I want to cut this off here, and I want to pause. Now, from the last time I put my marker down until I hit pause, there is data sitting in the buffer, and it's waiting for it to go somewhere. So if I try to say, all right, I paused here, and I want to start here, as soon as I click there, it's going to drag that data from the pause. So the best thing to do is double click on top of your last marker and then move. That way it stacks it. Exactly. And then you can resume your testing.
Gotcha.
No, that's still too quick. We'll just do this little triangle real quick.
So that's also a way that you can kind of intuitively know how fast you're between how fast you click, how many little dots you get. So you're kind of, looks like it's getting like every 1 second, you're probably getting a full data just based on.
You bring up the second point I was going to make. The number of channels you select are going to be directly proportional to how fast you need to walk. And what I mean by that, if a nice comfortable pace is about a measurement per second, and that's in that 12 to 15 channel range. Once you get above 15 channels that you're doing a decode on, you're going to have to walk a little bit slower. And like I said, I think the maximum for commercial wireless is like 24 channels. If I'm doing 24 channels, I'm going to mosey around the building. I'm not going to be in any hurry to go anywhere, just to make sure I get enough data density between that. Now, if my objective is just to make sure the coverage is there, I'm probably not concerned about how many data points I have. I just want to make sure the coverage is good. So, you could walk a little bit faster. But if you're doing something for design work, you want to make sure you have a lot more data points.
Yeah. So, and you could probably, as you're dropping your points there, you're starting to get a feel for that. So if you drop 2 points and nothing drops between it, then you're going too fast. Basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you want to rename your file, you can, after you finish collecting it and you hit stop, it's going to ask you want to keep, delete, or rename. If you do rename it, make sure you hit the rename button. If not, it'll go back to what you had it before.
Gotcha.
Now, like I said, we don't do a lot with that data on the tablet side. So if I go to my test list and I look for that test under drive walk test, I've only got a couple options. I can play it back or I can look at it from a quick view point of view. Most people will prefer the quick view because, first of all, it's quick, but I can only look at one metric at a time. So if I'm looking at LTE and I want to look at RSRP, and I can pull this little map up, I can take a screenshot or something like that, but there's not much else I can do with it. And the quick view doesn't show you every data point. It just shows you a percentage of them. If I want to see another metric, let's say if it's the same channel, but this time I want to look at RSRQ, I have to do the same thing.
A lot of it's just a confirmation that you've got the data.
Exactly. This is a good way to make sure you did collect data for all your channels. But if I really want to generate, kind of a summary report, this is where that collect tool comes into play. So what I would do, I would go to my tablet and go to my SeeHawk Touch folder and enter drives. There's that folder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this entire folder to my desktop. And while it's copying over, I'm going to open up the collect tool.
We have this as well.
Now, collect also does data collection. It's not It used to be the only way we could collect data with our scanners, and you did it in indoor mode or outdoor mode. The problem with that is it required you to carry a laptop. So most people prefer using the tablet for indoor mode, and they use Collect for outdoor drive testing. But it does give you a couple different things you can do with your data. So the first thing I'm going to do is right here, go to my drive list, and it's already found your data because my drive properties are looking for it on my desktop. And once it's on there, it just, as soon as you put new files there, it sees it. So the couple things I could do, I could export this data, and somebody asked about taking data into MATLAB. I can use this to do an export. And I can export this as a CSV file. So let me just do that real quick, just so you can see what the CSV files are like.
Gives you many rows of stuff.
Lots of and you can modify what the naming is. You can create a criteria for if you want to, just say send me data that's above a certain level, or look for specific cell IDs. But that's how long it takes to do a CSV export. They're done. Now for the report, if I want to generate a report for this one, oh, you know what? I did the wrong one. Cancel. I forget. I meant to do an export for here. Let's do it as a CSV file. I thought that was a little quick. There. Yeah. Still quick. So now to generate this report, or summary reports, you tell it what you want to see. So for LTE, RSRP, RSRQ, SINAR, and the best serving cell ID. For public safety, basically you want to look at the strongest channel, or you can specify which channel you want to monitor. And the same for the P25 decode. So if I want to look at power, I want to pick the channel that's being decoded, which was today channel 5. I'm going to do the SINAR for channel 5. The modulation that's being used for channel 5. Frame bit error rate. And if I just want to see what the strongest one are for RSSI or power, I can do those as well. And then, of course, all these legends are editable here. You can add ranges if you wanted to, change them with whatever colors you like. And
you can make more granular. That table.
Exactly. You can go up to, I think, 10 increments.
Oh, that's good. That was one thing I didn't like about it in Ritsu. Sometimes I didn't feel like they gave me that on the walk test.
What's nice is once you have these, changed, you can save it as a kind of a template, because it'll ask you. You can create a Word template. But that walk test that we just did for all those channels generated, I think it said 17 maps. I can export this to a document and miss walk. So by the time I could look through one channel's different parameters, I could create a Word document with all of them in there. And it's going to show you everything that you're reporting. And it's going to give you the signal levels, the distribution of points, and for every metric that you want to report. So that's a quick and easy way to look at your walk test or drive test data.
Now, let me ask you this, and this might be getting a little into the weeds. We might have to have a separate conversation about this. So on our initial task is going to be to go out and grab data as quickly as possible from every building for every floor. And I just need it because, upper leadership wants to know, at the snap of their fingers, what the cell service is on Michigan State campus. I mean, that's basically what started this whole thing. So I need to be able to aggregate that information as quickly as possible. And I don't even know if this tool would even allow me to do. I almost need something like I can customize. You know what I'm saying? Just so I can get because I don't need the maps in it. And basically I need very limited data in like a like a spreadsheet form, like this is floor, you know, this is the building, this is the floor, and either Verizon was a go or no go or something. That little bit of how is that? You
It's
know where I'm
possible.
going here?
Yep.
Really?
And the way that I would do that is I would do it as a grid test. And the reason I would do it as a grid test is it's the quickest, easiest way from data collection to report.
Okay.
And the reason I say that, if I'm doing it as a grid test, let me go pick the one we were doing earlier. And let me do a resume. Because I can set my thresholds for what I consider acceptable levels for LTE based off of RSRP and SINR. And whatever those, let's say, they're more interested in data streaming. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is change this to a +5. And I could probably still leave my RSRP, probably, -95 would be a more appropriate number. But so that's if I wanted streaming service. But if I just wanted to know, hey, are these guys going to be able to get a phone call and be able to text? I could probably set this to 0. So if I was just looking to be able to make a VoLTE call, it's going to be something like that.
Right, and that's at this point. That's what I think that's what they're thinking about. How bad are things out here? Is if there was a 911 emergency? I mean, do we have our heads around the fact that 30-40% of our buildings you can't even make a 911 call? This is the level that I'm going to initially be working at. Of course, once we really start, getting into it, we'll do all the bells and whistles. But the first thing I got to do is send students out.
Yep.
And just give me the data. So if we could walk through maybe how I might want to set that up.
Yep. And you set it up the same way as you did your regular grid test, right? All you have to do now, though, is find out the channels you need to add. So right now I've got those 3 channels. If I need to add more LTE channels in there, I could go on back to my, list of channels I found in my blind scan. And for sure, one of them that came up was the one in band 12. And that was 5035. And let's see, band 30 is another one you guys have. Let me see what your channel number is, because I think that's a nationwide channel too. 9820. That's what I thought. I want 9820. So you just go through here and build up your list like you would normally that you're going to do a walk test, but you can do it as a grid test as well. And now I've got it, you probably want to do at least 2 channels or, per operator, or at least 1 channel per band per operator, whichever way you want to do it. And I would do it as the grid test. And then once I have that selected, it's, if I've already worked with the file, or if I just want to, let's say, here, I'm going to show you a way that I would go about doing this for a campus. And so I'm going to bring up Google Earth. So let's say they really want you to test, I'm not familiar with Michigan State, but I have a good colleague of mine went to school there.
48823 probably get you there pretty quick, or you can type it in.
4822.
48824.
That one. Is that?
Yeah. Wait.
No,
Wait a second. We're
482.
I thought that's 4. Maybe better do like you Michigan State. I thought it was. Yeah.
Okay.
Michigan. That's right.
Right below your.
Okay, there we go.
I think it's 48.
Holy cow, you guys are way up there.
Yep, you're right. You're You're zoomed definitely in. Out more out in the farm. Go north a little bit.
I know you guys got a campus around there somewhere.
It's in there. We see it. Yeah, go. You were there. If you just kind of no, you go too south. Go north. Now go north.
Just this one right here.
You're just out. No, you're just out in the farm area. You got. If you go north, if you push up.
Up this way.
There, keep climbing.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's what I was looking for. Yeah.
Meat of things.
So, let's say for some reason they want you to go test the field at the stadium. I'm gonna reset my tilt. So there's a couple ways I could do this. First thing is I could. There's a couple things with the tool. It prefers your pictures to be, longer than taller. So I can either rotate it here or I can rotate it after. It doesn't really matter. I find it easier just to do it here. And what I'm going to use is my snipping tool.
Yeah, snipping tool is good.
Yeah.
Love the snipping tool.
And I'm just going to call this Spartan. And I'm going to take that image I just created and I've had it on my desktop. There it is. I'm going to bring it to my tablet. It's going to go to SeeHawk Touch, Indoor Maps. And it shows up there. So I've still got all my channels I have, including my public safety and all the LTE. I'm going to load and register an image file. I'm going to see if I can find it. There it is. I'll register with the ruler since it's a football field. I know
You should be able to get that one very accurate.
to there. And that's 300 feet. I'm going to leave the default settings. I'm just going to hit Spartan as the name. And then put my grid on here. All right. Now, since this is kind of longer, I'm actually going to do something like this. Instead of 5 by 4, I'm going to do 7 by 3. That's going to give me 21. Let me zoom in a little bit. And then I would just go about testing it like you normally would. And then just move throughout the grid areas. So you're still going to get everything you need for your LTE channels. The only thing we don't put in the report is the actual PCI. But if you wanted to write it down, you could, or you just open up the spreadsheet and it's going to be in the spreadsheet. And then you could say, all right, they're interested in knowing, let's 5230, that's Verizon. It's not coming in very good. Double check my thresholds, and it's not going to meet that. So let me see if AT&T is any better. Yeah. And then it's just a matter of going out there and collecting data. The reason I like doing it this way compared to doing it as a walk test, first of all, I think it's faster, depending on the number of channels. If I didn't need public safety channels, this would be like really, really quick.
Mm-hmm.
But it collects data for all these LTE channels, and I can pretty much tell it, all right, what do I want to consider good parameters or bad parameters? And I can generate a report, and I've got it done in a matter of minutes versus trying to take that walk data into an either collect or something else to create a report from. This, I think, makes it simple because it's either good or bad. There's no in between. And for people that want to make decisions, that's all they want to see, right?
Right. Well, I don't even know if could that be put into like a spreadsheet? That information?
Actually, whenever you finish collecting the data, you generate the report. There's the table. The table's basically an Excel file.
That would probably be more. I'm thinking at a high level.
Yeah,
Because I'll just have to be looking through it relatively quickly.
exactly.
Kind of digest and then, have a report per building, real
Right.
upper management level type of thing.
So what you could do is when you do your report from earlier, it's fully editable. So what you could do is, if you're not concerned about having this LTE map in here, you could just delete that, and the tables are right here. So that it's for EDEX.
Okay.
So that's probably what I would think, because I don't want to spend time creating a spreadsheet when this pretty much tells me for this LTE channel, there's my carrier power, this is my Steinar, this is RSRP, and right here it tells me if it's good or bad.
Okay, so that I'll be able to deal with. I can figure. Now I know this is getting way down into the weeds, and you might not even want to speak much to this. But I know that there's a template from which that report is built into. So if you took out the part in that template that told it to put the JPEG image in there, then it wouldn't put the image in, right?
Correct, but it's hard.
How when it's hard coded. So, but you could copy like the master out and put in your own kind of thing like that, or is that going
or the other thing you could do is instead of generating the report, once you're done with the data collection on the tablet, the raw data files and the indoor grid folder.
Okay.
I'll even pull this up. There's a spreadsheet for your area test points.
Oh, that's pulling that table information from
Yeah, so you can just pull this table up, and it's basically saying, for each one of your grid areas, because you're going to have for each channel that's being measured, and it's going to give you the
grid number. Is that what that is? Column B. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
It's telling you this is pulling from grid 1 and which grid area. So, all these measurements are associated with grid 1, area 1. Then it goes to area 2, and so on and so forth, based on the number of
How about the
channels.
pass part, though? Where it said pass in the table, I guess it was like summarizing that.
No, that's part of the hard coding thing. What it does is it looks at this table and decides whether it's pass or fail based on that.
So it's summarizing each. So it's taking everything in grid ID.
Yep. And then it generates. Exactly. So once you do the report, it's basically looking through those files to generate the report. And
right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can probably actually do something like that in Excel to do the same thing. I'm pretty good at that kind of egghead stuff. Okay, that's good.
All right. So now we got about an hour left, and it's time for you guys to ask me any questions that you have.
Hello. A message after the tone. Let's see here. I think, as we were going, that was, so I liked your opinion on how we could get, so that's how we could get the quickest amount of data per building. And so you were thinking that the walk test would be the way to go for our initial, as new buildings are built, we'll definitely do do the fire marshal kind of thing. But as because we also don't have we have some time limitations and student labor and stuff like that. And so if I've got well over 100 buildings, I need to get them in and out as quickly as possible and move on to the next one. So, so I think that in your opinion, set up a grid test and then even make the grid much bigger.
You could make it as big as you want.
Kind of thing. That's kind of what I'm kind of just thinking in real time with you as we're thinking through this, as we could just do kind of, so I would give them the grid so the students would know, so they just know, and I would tell them where to stand within reason, probably maybe roughly 4 corners of a floor.
Yeah. So let's say
like that.
If you just wanted to find out, generic stuff, you don't really necessarily need to have a whole bunch of grids, that would probably be enough.
Right. If we're not trying to pass.
Yeah, exactly. You just want to see what
fire.
Exactly. And you can do the same thing with, so if there was a requirement to do the parking lot, you could do the same thing.
No, yeah. Yep. Oh, the outdoor testing. I know definitely we'll do driving eventually.
Mhm.
So okay, so that would be I would probably build up, and it will depend on the building, but maybe a 4x4, or 6x6 or something if it's a larger building, and then I'll put a little icon for roughly where I want them to stand,
Mm-hmm.
and then they just stand there and wait for it to say send
Had to-
report. Isn't there some kind of
Yep.
that
That's
gives
all you're waiting for is till
get the
yeah. You just wait for
yeah
it.
wait for add to report. That's
Yep. And if you watch this, because this is, we're doing P25, so it's waiting to get those 3 samples. But if you look at the LTE measurements, they're a lot faster than decoding P25 channels.
oh
Yeah.
really
Yeah. See how fast these are going compared to my P25. So, I've got about 10 to all of them.
We'll only have one P25, so that'll help.
Yeah,
How's Wi-Fi
exactly.
do in that scope? Is it slower, faster?
No.
Is a big
So you can actually add Wi-Fi to this. Don't say.
yeah, because I think we should survey Wi-Fi if we're doing this anyway. Just
so an indoor grid. The only thing is when you're doing a Wi-Fi scan for that, you have to know which channels you want or which SSIDs you want. So let's say
because you don't want to do a whole bunch of them.
Well, because it thinks you already know information about the network. So 36 is usually a good one, and I think it's 140 maybe.
So I should probably talk to Lisa and get if they have like a basic.
Just put in like MSU net.
2.0 or Reggie.
Yeah, I'll ask
Right.
them. Because SSID stays the same. in
Right.
every building.
Yeah, if you just did it by the SSID, it doesn't really matter. It's just going to pick it out whether it's 2.4 or 5.
Printer and
Right.
blah blah blah. Yeah, so I'll talk to the Wi-Fi group a little bit on that. And cut it at that point.
So it's also
Still,
doing Wi-Fi scans as well.
The question was, is that going to slow it down a little bit?
It will slow it down some,
Okay.
but then again, you're only doing one P25 decoding channel, and however many channels or SSIDs for that. So
And
now,
some of this will just be based on, we'll have to, myself and then the technicians will probably go out and do some trial runs. Where we'll have to,
exactly.
just play around with it and see. And then once we're ready to actually really give it to the student who can do nothing more than just point and walk,
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing that's kind of nice about this tool. You spend a lot of the brain power in the beginning in setting it up, and then you can pretty much turn it over to a technician to go out and collect the data.
Right. Yeah. And in our case, it's going to be real nice because we only got to tune it once.
Yeah.
Because we have to think nothing changes.
Yeah.
But we will, when we do, as new buildings are built and stuff, we'll definitely do the full on. Or when, also the other thing is departments will say that really want a full test because they want to decide if they want to get a network extender or something. So in that case, then we would give them the full grid test and really divide it up. So give them, Well, that's good. I know I kind of got ahead of you a little bit, so I don't have a ton of questions because I already talked to tech support like 4 times. And got a lot of information, but I did learn that the tech guys are really nice and good, easy to work with. So that was really a nice experience. I appreciate that.
Awesome.
With your guys, yeah. We did a Teams call, and so we could do screen share. He did just like what you were doing, emulated his screen.
Yep. And was that Brandon or Raul?
I worked with Brandon mostly. There was another gentleman who got me started. Oh, on the licensing. I think you were copied at the beginning when we couldn't get the licensing figured out. And that's because they didn't have it started till like the 8th or something. So once he
figured that out, because you're like the third person that's had that issue, or they got the tablet before the start date. I'm like, how does that even happen? And I think it's because when they project
started the license.
Yeah, exactly. They have a projected ship date, and I think that's what they use to put the date in. And our shipping guys are pretty good, and they typically ship early, and that might be a problem.
But at the end of the day, you know what? I don't know really if it makes that much. Why not just start at the day they enter the information in? I mean, it's
Well,
not like it's
the one reason we do this is because you have something called a maintenance agreement. And,
oh, I see. I don't want to get persnickety about
yeah, so let me get out of here for a second. So if you go to your license information, you're going to see this maintenance valid till. And what that really means is if a release comes out between now and the end of your maintenance window, you'll be prompted to download a new version of software. And, you know, maintenance releases, you know, most of the features you see have been asked for by customers. So most of the stuff we implement are something somebody's asked for. And as long as you're within your maintenance agreement, they're free. You can pay to update your maintenance every year. I think it's like, you know, $1,500. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a sales guy. But, you know, as long as you're within your maintenance window, if there's an update that comes out, you get entitled to it. But you'll also know your license is permanent. So if you don't do a maintenance upgrade, your license doesn't expire. You still get to use your license with whatever release you have.
right. It's not software as a service.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the old days. You know, when you bought the software, you got it forever.
Yeah.
But you just don't get the updates, like you're saying.
Yeah,
Things
exactly.
like that. So, yeah, I think I had them budgeted in for the life cycle and the calibration.
Yeah, every 2 years.
Yeah, so we're ready. Reoccurring, I should say. Oh, well, that's good to know. So I guess I do see why they are trying to tighten up that window a little bit. So I already did get almost like a day after I plugged it in, I got prompted for another update.
Yeah, and that's
there's an
the
email
one
went out.
Yep, and that's the cloud version that just got released, and I'm actually working on the training manual for that.
Oh, cool. Oh, speaking of cloud, what about the FTP thing? Is that something we can, is a free thing?
So let's go back to your test list and let's select one of your grid tests. Next to any one of your grid tests, when you select it, you can share it, you can upload it to the cloud if you want, or you can send it to an FTP. But let's say you guys were talking about OneBox or something like that, or Dropbox. OneDrive. You can save it to a drive. There's OneDrive right there. As long as you have connectivity, you can sign in and you create an account and it uploads it there.
Right. So the idea, I hear what you're saying, Doug, but unfortunately someone's gonna have to have their OneDrive linked onto a tablet.
I'm saying if you're gonna share files to a common folder, like for the design team, you could do that.
Right, but then I would have to be back out of my OneDrive though, because I'm also giving the tablet to the students to walk around with.
Or you create a generic OneDrive for just this.
Folder that people can dump files in. It doesn't have to be your OneDrive. We have departmental folders in SharePoint.
Well, how am I going to initially access the OneDrive?
I'll work on that.
Okay, that's fine. But as long as I just don't want to.
It won't be your personal OneDrive. It'll be a department folder.
That's fine.
Yeah, what you used to do with our other design drawings.
Okay. Yeah, like Dale was saying, you did mention something like a generic. You could set that up. So there's one way. What about is there like a cloud thing that you offer, or is that like a premium?
Yeah, there is a cloud version, and let me see if I can launch that real quick. Let me go to.
We do that with Fluke. It's a free thing where we can push things up.
Oh, if you're talking about free thing, you're better off with the FTP option. Because I know this upload option takes it to that cloud service that we're selling for a fee. That's the direct upload that. But you could set it up to do an FTP setup. To configure the FTP manager, it's fairly simple. As long as you got an FTP directory, and you can see that these are all pending to be, once I configure my FTP information, you can auto upload. And as soon as you get connection to your tablet, these files go all the way up there. But I will tell you what most people do.
Oh, push.
Most people, if you look at the reports, depending on how many pages, you can, if there's email on the tablet, you can just email the report out, or if you need to email the folder out, the folders aren't very big either. So if you look at the actual raw data, so the one we did earlier, that file is, just 3.3 meg. It really depends on how many floors you have and how big the resolution images are. So a lot of people use the email function. They're starting to use the share function, which we just added with this release. And then of course there's the FTP. So those are the 3 ways you could do it. And most people, including myself, you prefer the email method.
A lot of that. Well, right now what we're doing, as soon as you plug the tablet into your laptop, you've got the thing. So as long as you have local access to it, then that's one quick way of doing it.
Exactly.
Just drag and drop. But
yep.
We're trying to think as we get moving and people are out in the field. So we have a couple options that maybe Doug can help us get set up with a OneDrive thing. We like OneDrive because it's kind of what we use on campus.
Right.
And if we can just get over that hump of
just having initial links set up.
Yeah. The share thing, that's nice. That's how I would do it if it was my personal device. I would just go to that and probably click the Google Drive or something.
And the only reason like I said, this just came out with this release, so I haven't played with it that often. But that sounds, that's how I typically do things on my phone. So
yeah, I was gonna say it looks like it just hooks into whatever you do if you wanted to share a photo or something.
Yep.
Your Android.
So you just have to make sure you have connectivity to the tablet through Wi-Fi or something like that.
Wi-Fi. Yep. Okay. Well, that's helpful. I can't really think of anything right off the top of my head that is without going out there and without playing around with it. I might have more questions.
And that's fine. Once you guys play with it, if you need to have a follow-up session, you just let me know, and we'll try to get a time worked out for everybody, and we can do that as well.
Yeah, just something that's maybe less than an hour type of thing. Once we have some more questions queued up. And you have the recording. Is that going to be like a fairly big file?
It will, and so I'll send you a link to download it. So GoToMeeting software, it records it, and once we get done, it'll convert the recording to an MP4 format. We've been going for a couple hours, so it'll take a couple hours for it to render into an MP4 format. But once it does, I'll send you a link to download it. I usually use WeTransfer, and I just send you a link to download it, and you download it automatically. And I think it stays up there for like a week or so.
Okay. Yeah, I'll pull it down as soon as I get the link, so we'll have that. So that's good. So we can all kind of digest what you talked about on that.
So one of the other things we do, since this is the certification training, I'm going to give you some project guidelines to create a grid report. All you have to do is send me the Word document. And if you want to we can also put you on our certified public safety testers page once I get a report and you get certified. Some people like that. It's free advertising. I've actually been contacted by AHJs to identify people that work within some of these companies to see which ones are certified. I keep track of everybody that I've ever certified. So it's free advertising. It's something you want. I'll send you a consent form if you'd like to be on there. We actually have some companies that don't like to be on there because they don't want their competitors to know what they're doing.
So basically, you want us to, amongst ourselves, to do a walk test of a building?
Yeah, a grid test, and just and then you send me the Word document, and once I see the Word document, I'll review it, and if there's no questions, or if there are questions, we'll go over it. But after that, that's when I issue your certificate.
That sounds good. So are you gonna email me the guidelines?
Yes, I will. Plan? Yep, I'll email you the guidelines, a link to download the recording and the slides, and I might even send you a training survey just to see what you think of the training.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll definitely. So that'll work. That's the first thing we're gonna do anyways, is go out and hit the boots on the ground and play with it. And so we would be doing what you were asking for the certification anyway.
Awesome.
So it'd be nice to do it actually and follow some of these instructions to kind of set up right the first time. Yeah. Because after we're done with that, we're probably gonna really loosen things up like we just talked about, so we can do so much more testing so much quicker for our base level stuff.
So to give you an idea, You know, I've done a couple of universities, and out of the one, depending on how far apart the buildings are and how close they are, you could do anywhere from 10 to 20 buildings a day, depending on how big they are. And what I mean by that, the one university, he was basically going from one door to the next, and you know, there's like 6 buildings in a row. You know, it took us less than 2 hours to test those 6 buildings. You move across the street, you test the 6 on the other side, and you move on.
Yeah.
And then, of course, then you get into the really big ones that are going to take you an hour to test. It's because they're so far apart. So you can do quite a bit. So if you do a little planning ahead of time, it won't take you very long to get all your buildings tested.
That's what I was gonna try to. That was some of the data I was trying to figure out, which actually will base on what myself and the technician do first. You know, and that will help set the guidelines. How long? One thing is that the majority of them are like you could just keep walking from building to building. So, and you know, I figure I broke the campus up into groups of like 10. You know, just to get our head around that. I think it came out to like, you know, 20 little, you know, I did a grid of the campus, basically a 20 spot grid, you know, with 10 buildings in it. And that's roughly speaking. And so that's where I'll start. But that's helpful to know that you say it might go faster than we think, especially if we're doing it the way that we just talked about it. We'll just hit 4 corners.
And after you've done it a couple of times, it'll be even faster.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, I'm pretty good. So if anybody else has got anything else for Dale, but we definitely have access to questions.
Yeah, and about the only time I don't answer my phone is when I'm giving a class. So if you do call, leave a message, and I'll call you back as soon as I can.
Okay. Yeah.
Dale, can you send us the link recording of what you recorded so that we can play it back if we do something?
You sure will.
Thanks.
And also, if you click on the little question mark, that's where the help manual is.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I did find it. That is nice.
Yeah. What I like about this, you know, if you type the word grid, it takes you right there, and it kind of shows you the whole thing. And as you've already talked to support guys, if you need to get a hold of them, you can type support in here as well. And there's their contact information. And Joe, you already have mine, so.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, I'll shoot you email if I got, you know, need to set something up, and we can do a second one. And you can definitely, you know, plenty of time in between and whenever you can fit us in. That is to say, if we need to go over it.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, once we go, well, we'll do that. Yeah, we might learn some or have some questions after we do that walk test. So we'll do that definitely and get ourselves certified.
Awesome.
Go from there.
If there aren't any other questions, I appreciate you guys. Good morning.
Yeah. So I'll just keep checking my inbox for that description of the buildings, and then a link to this, and then also the your slide deck. That'd be helpful too to have.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. It'll probably take about 2 hours or so for this to render down, and once it does, I'll send you a link to download everything.
No problem. All right. Well, appreciate it, Dale.
No problem. You guys have a great day.
Okay, you too. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.